Joining us, Marc Rotterman. And Marc, of course, has been with us for several years now, formerly with a program on PBSNC, Front Row, which unfortunately felt that maybe it was getting a little too hot for them. He was being a little, well, what can I say, trying to give an alternative point of view. Well, Marc, thank you very much for that alternative point of view. And I'd be interested in your point of view about today. And good afternoon to you, sir.
Great to be with you. In regard to PBS North Carolina, I called them the way I see them, and almost everybody thought I was more than fair and balanced. But I think in respect to former President Trump's indictment today, it was quite candidly a sad day for America. It's a sad day for the American public. It's a sad day for the rule of law. It was politically motivated. The justice system has been weaponized. What you have here is a DA who ran on indicting Donald Trump when he had no facts, but it was get Trump at any cost. And what we have here is now 34 minor offenses that he's really bootstrapping to try to get a conviction on Donald Trump. Really, I think this is right now, and let's be clear about this. Cy Vance, who was a former district attorney in Manhattan, passed on doing this. The Justice Department passed on doing this, and as well as Robert Mueller. So what I think this is a misdirection play. It's a political move to try to take the heat off of all Joe Biden's problems, which goes to the economy, our energy production, not confrontations, but what's happened with foreign policy, right, geopolitically with
China,
and Ukraine, and Russia,
and Brazil,
and here, frankly, Joe Biden's own problems with his son, and he's selling influence to foreign countries.
You know, this is where it is very bothersome about this whole issue, Marc, and part of that is the retribution, if you will, the revenge that might be meted out on Democrats, on Joe Biden, on Hunter, and all the Biden family, the crimes.
Well, I don't think that's retribution. I think that's legitimate. Well, when they have been getting millions of dollars for doing nothing from the Communist Party, to me, that's almost treason, but it's definitely influence peddling.
Well, and by the way, we've got
Hunter Biden's getting away with stuff that I'll tell you, Donald Trump Jr. or none of the family could get involved with. Biden gets a pass from the propagandists and the mainstream media. He's not being called on it. And let's be clear, a lot of times, this country is in bad trouble, and what you were talking about off camera with me is frankly, we have a lot of problems, and to bring this up when you have crime like in Manhattan and New York, where this guy doesn't even prosecute felons anymore.
Right.
I mean, it's a very dangerous city up there, but they have to spend millions to bring Donald Trump up. They got to shut down New York just to show him in court. I mean, they wanted a mugshot. They didn't get it. They wanted to gag him. They didn't get it. But I think this thing ought to be dismissed, but at the very least, they ought to have a change of venue, because only 34% of the people in Manhattan, in that district attorney's district, voted for Donald Trump. It's very biased. But in New York, you can indict a ham sandwich, and that's clearly what they did.
Well, you know, as I opened the program and said, can we rightfully call President Biden now a ham sandwich? And he does like to ham things up, and it's a little spicy too. But my point goes to the fact that there's no benefit. What's the benefit of this, Marc?
Well, no, and by the way, the statute of limitations is up. There was nothing he did. There's no campaign finance law. This was a non-disclosure that he gave a woman that he may or may not had a relationship with.
Right.
He gave her money. She signed a non-disclosure. Trump's signed a non-disclosure. It wasn't a campaign finance law because there was no campaign money involved. It was his own personal money.
Right.
By the way, they tried to pull the same thing with John Edwards. It didn't work. And if you look back, Bill Clinton paid Paula Jones $850,000 to go away. The law doesn't apply, but back to your main point, how is this moving America forward? And by the way, there will be retribution. What about the next time there's a Republican president? Are they going to then, can a Republican DA, let's say in North Carolina, charge Joe Biden with something? It opens up a can of worms like you've never seen.
Therein lies the frustration I have with this. Marc Rotterman, by the way, is our guest this afternoon. And yes, you've heard him many times before on the PBS program Front Row, which PBS has couldn't find. He was made him a little uncomfortable because he wanted to play it down the center. He really wanted to not basically be a part of the liberal narrative. I appreciate that, by the way, Mark. Let's go back to the issue of, how do the Democrats move any legislation forward for two reasons. One, you've got all the focus right now on the events in New York City and all of this hype on basically a court case that could be dismissed, by the way. There's a request for a dismissal. I don't think that's going to happen, mainly because I think everybody involved is enjoying the limelight. But the other problem is...
Well, I don't think, I just take one exception. I don't think Donald Trump enjoyed that.
No, he doesn't. I'm talking about
and I guess what I'm saying to you is, I do think a judge could come along and say that there's nothing there.
Boy.
And he can't bootstrap this case the way he did. This guy's making a political point. Look, the left-wing radicals, and that's what they are. You shouldn't call them progressives. The left-wing radicals in the White House and in the Democratic Party and the AOCs today are happy. But it's short-term happiness. As you say, first of all, Republicans control the House. That's where bills are generated. Mm-hmm. I think the next big fight is going to be over the budget. And keeping the government open. But Biden's refusing to negotiate. Even Obama negotiated with John Boehner, and they came to an agreement. He's refusing to negotiate on a sound budget. We're deeply in debt, and he wants to spend another trillion or so. I think seven.
Right.
$1,700 billion. It's ridiculous. He's spending us into oblivion.
Not only that, we can look at the president and be frustrated with him. But I want to go back to Congress with you for a moment, Mark, before we go to this break. And we've got Marc Rotterman with us. And if you've got an opinion, an observation, you're welcome to join us. 252 area code 222-4848, 222-4848. Mark, Congress is going to have to be productive. The American public is getting frustrated, I do believe, to the extent that they have, even the poll numbers for the president have declined significantly. We have an increased number of people that are going to be going on the unemployment lines. Disney,
they're being laid off.
McDonald's,
Amazon's laying off.
Yeah,
you're going to see McDonald's laying off. But I don't think anything changes unless Republicans get control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Or at least they have veto-proof majorities if Joe Biden decides to run, again, which I don't think he will. I don't think they want him to run in the Democratic Party. He'll be 82 if he was reelected. And by the way, he has put off announcing until the fall whether he really is going to announce. Well, I look at Gavin Newsom from California, but to your point, it's hard to get anything done when the commander-in-chief will not deal with the Republican Party in Congress.
See, the other aspect of this is I'm thinking the president and quite frankly, the standard bearer of the Democrat Party could have pulled this to a close early on and said, let's go for the high road. They did not go for the high road. Before we go to the break, let's go to Ernie in Emerald Isle. I've been waiting for his phone call. He's the one who described this as political theater for me, Mark. Let's get his opinion. Ernie, good afternoon. Welcome to the program. Yes, sir.
Yeah, and hello, Mark, too. Boy, we sure miss you. But nevertheless, the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's going to happen with this. this has triggered a reaction from people that were kind of wavering about Trump. This is so far out that I believe that this is going to work well for him. I really do. It's going to I don't think there's a chance of conviction.
Okay, wait, Ernie. I've got to go to a break, but I want to take this one step further. You say it's going to work well for Trump. My question is, will it work to the ill of the Democrat Party? I'm not saying work to the benefit of the Republican Party. Will it work to the ill of the Democrat Party? And before I go to the break, I want to get your opinion on that, Ernie. Do you have any friends, liberal friends, who you think will simply say, okay, I can't take this party anymore. I can't take this kind of absurdity?
Well, Lockwood, I have those kind of folks in my own family.
And
yeah, I do. And they're kind of mystified about this. Okay. The first reaction is, oh, that's great. They got Trump. But, they're starting to think about this. If they can do this to Trump, they can do this to any businessman. Anybody. They could actually do it to me.
Right. Anybody.
I mean, that's kind of a stretch. I'm a piker as far as business goes, but they could do it to anybody. And people are starting to think about this. They want to go after you. They'll get you.
All right. Thank you very much, Ernie.
That's a great point, Ernie.
I appreciate that. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We've got Marc Rotterman on. Ernie just gave us his opinion about the impact this is going to have. I'm thinking that same question to ask of Mark here when we get back. Will this injure, if you will, the Democrat Party? Will this, or if you will, the efforts of the Democrat Party to gain, for example, any movement in Washington, in North Carolina at the state level, and I might add, any candidates? Will anybody be proud of the Democrat Party when this is all said and done? We'll find out in just a moment from Marc Rotterman. As I mentioned at the opening of the program, we're going to be joined today by Marc Rotterman, which I really appreciate him hanging around with us today. And Mark, of course, the host of Front Row, before the folks at PBS got a little uncomfortable for his ability to shoot straight, right down the middle.
By the way, that's taxpayer-funded PBS North Carolina.
Yes, taxpayer.
Okay, and you have to wonder whether the citizens of North Carolina should continue funding. It's about $10 million a year from the UNC Board of Governors. That type of programming, like Washington Week, which is basically just propaganda for the White House and the left-wing agenda, and CBS NewsHour.
So remember that, taxpayer. You paid for that. Think about that. All right, Mark, I want to go back to the indictment today. The thing I'm concerned with, I want to focus on, is how, and we've got several other items we're going to talk about related to the upcoming debates. I know you mentioned that to me off air a few moments ago. But how influential does this or impactful is this on the Democrat Party? And I'm going to look at Joe Manchin, who himself has said this is a bogus effort. He is not happy. There's a potential that Joe Manchin may actually enter the presidential race on the Democrat ticket. And in light of the fact that, and I shared this with you over the weekend, that the president cannot make 2 trips to London or to England in a month because his staff doesn't think he has the stamina to do it. And of course, they're now begging off saying, well, no president has ever attended a coronation. Well, regardless, in light of the fact of the world events, we need as many friends as we can get. And we're not doing a very good job, I might add. But what impact?
His group of foreign policy folks that surround him are really, it's kind of pitiful. But let me just mention a couple things. I think, first of all, you look at, this could be very analogous to what you're saying. You look at when the Republicans impeached Bill Clinton on a really which was an affair with several different women, and of course he was caught lying, and that was the reason for the impeachment. But Ken Starr, I think, took that investigation too far. You could have that type of pushback, blowback from the American public. I don't think they like this. Remember, they've impeached this man twice for nothing. They did not convict him. They raided his home. They wanted to impeach Donald Trump, and it was in the front page of the Washington Post almost immediately after his election. They started calling for impeachment. So this has been the radical left wing of the Democratic Party that runs that party's now objective from day one. I think he gets a bump. He's almost 30 points ahead of DeSantis right now. But the key, I think, is the first debates and how this plays. There's going to be some benchmarks, how much money you have, where you are in the polls. I don't think you're going to see 10 people on stage. But how does this play in the debates? And really, does it move the ball forward for the Republican Party? Because I think they need to talk about solutions and a way forward for America, and not about Donald Trump's problems that continue, that are manufactured by the Democratic justice system, the Democrats in the justice system. But how do we move the ball forward? Because in my experience, elections are about what's next for the American public, and how do you move that forward? And they're about an agenda that moves the ball forward for the American people. And there's so many problems with inflation. I think we're going into a recession. Oil prices are going up because the Saudis just cut a million and some change, 1,200,000 barrels a day of production. The Saudis don't like Joe Biden. Our foreign policy is in tatters. Our crime is out of control. How are Republicans going to come up with solutions for the American public on that? You know, the people who are working today down in Carteret County or Morehead City, they haven't been able to follow this. They just look at this as another circus brought to you by the politicians in Washington.
It is a circus. It's theater. It's cheap theater at that. And here's the other aspect. Within weeks, this is going to have a certain smell about it. I don't think anybody cares. And then I go back to my initial question. We've got raging inflation. We have, you mentioned the potential, more and more financial
disruption
are saying that we are going into a recession. They can't stop it now. We've got now gas prices going up. Remember the cartoons are actually the stickers. Biden gave you this, being stuck on gas pumps. I bet you we're going to start seeing those again. These are the kind of things that, impact lives and businesses on a daily basis. And the media, this is what's really got me bothered. The media has just been focused on this issue of New York City. That is not the epicenter of the world. We've got real situations that need to be dealt with. I don't know how do Democrats, take and actually create some sort of policy out of this. How do they go forward with concerns associated with Social Security?
Well, they're trying to make Donald Trump the issue, and it's a misdirection play. So you don't see about Joe Biden and his family selling influence to China, to Russia.
Wait a second, Mark.
Other countries in this world, which they've been doing for decades.
But Mark,
let me ask you.
But here's the problem.
On a salary of $200,000, which is about what senators make, and he didn't even make that throughout his career. How do you get to 2 mansions in Wilmington, Delaware?
Well, all right. Here's the other issue, Mark. I acknowledge that, but every time somebody goes to gas up their car, and we're moving into a major travel season of the year.
Correct.
Spring and summer. Every time they push that nozzle into their car, they're going to be looking at $3.50, $4 a gallon or more.
Oh, I think so. But candidly, Biden disrespected Saudi Arabia.
Right.
The crown prince over there.
Oh, he turned him into a pariah. They were going to turn him.
From day one. He has attacked the energy industry in this country. We were energy independent. We are 850 million barrels short of where we would have been with Trump. Mm-hmm. We have the cleanest gas and oil production in the world, yet we're giving our business to Iran, Russia, Venezuela and the Saudis. Okay, and so now this is very analogous, and you remember this, both you and I. You remember gas lines.
Right.
You remember the cost of gas going up. Gas should be somewhere in the $2.30 to $2.50 to $2.50 get per gallon range in this country right now, but it is not, because we're dependent on foreign countries, and that's Joe Biden's fault. And it couldn't be happening at a worse time, as you say, because we're going into vacation and travel season. And look, just the cost of getting on a plane to go somewhere has gone up exponentially. So I think all these problems are a problem for Joe Biden, and I think the Democratic Party is going to come to him in the leadership and say, hey, enough's enough. You know, one quick thing. Do you know that the judge today, his daughter worked for Kamala Harris when she ran for president.
Oh.
This thing was so wired, it's incredible.
All right,
The
Mark.
judge in Trump's indictment today.
All right, Marc Rotterman with us, of course, former host of Front Row. And Mark, I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you to stay with me. I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to wrap things up. But here's my question. If you're a Democrat, how do you break through the noise of today and the weeks ahead? That's my question. I'm thinking that there's some Democrats that are going to find themselves swallowed up in all this press and quite frankly, the negative blowback that I'm expecting here from the country writ large. Stay with us. We're going to wrap things up with Marc Rotterman. We've got Marc Rotterman for a few more minutes here on Viewpoints. And Mark, I again want to go back to, how does a Democrat candidate, how do the Democrat leaders, how do they break through this noise? Because I think it's going to consume any message they try to send out. Your thoughts?
Well, I think it dies down in about 3 weeks, but then, of course, you have the documents, special counsel that Trump had documents that they were negotiating, classified documents that he had under lock and key, but they seem to be going after him more. They have the Georgia, where they said he tried to influence the election afterwards, where he asked, can we find any more votes, which is legitimate, because you do recounts. But I think this will continue to happen. The real problem for the Democrats is Joe Biden's economy, and I don't think they can get past that. And it's just a circus-like atmosphere that you're talking about around President Trump and these constant attacks on him, which makes the progressives in the Democratic Party happy. But if you're in a swing district in North Carolina and you're a Democrat like Deborah Ross, which that district could be drawn differently, you're going to have to fess up and say, this is what we need to do to get this economy moving again. Thank God we have a General Assembly run by Republicans right now that are fiscally responsible. I mean, let's be real candid. Governor Cooper doesn't have much say, and I just saw that a Charlotte Democrat is switching to Republican, I think, in the House, State House, which will give them, the Republicans, a veto-proof majority there. Let's be clear. The Republicans are running this state right now, and they're doing a very good job financially. They're doing a very good job on what they're doing for the schools, for parental rights, against this transgender activism and sexualizing kids when they're 4 or 5, 6 years old in the 5th grade or whatever. It's absurd, the agenda that the left-wing radicals are pushing on Americans today. But people are going to have to stand up. I will tell you this right now. They say it every time. But I think one of the most important things is this next election is going to be critical, because I think that America right now is in a moral and economic decline. And after Reagan, who I worked for, and when the wall came down because of what Reagan did, but it came down under George Herbert Walker Bush, we were the #1 superpower in the world. You can't say that today.
No, But the other aspect, and by the way, I just want to make mention. Thank you for sharing that with us. North Carolina Representative Tricia Cotham, Cotham, is switching party affiliation from Democrat to Republican. That is a significant story in North Carolina. Big story in North Carolina. I go back to my comment about the likes of Senator Manchin, who is very frustrated with both the president's policy on energy and now also embarrassed about the situation in New York. Embarrassed. I think they're going to be other...
he's got to be embarrassing. You know how many... You know what the vote percentage was in West Virginia for Donald Trump? 70%.
Right.
He's got to run there.
Yeah.
But you're right. He may run for president. The problem for him to run for president is the makeup of the Democratic Party today. It's not even the makeup of the Democrat. There are no blue dog Democrats left except for Manchin and a few others. But I think Manchin's main sin was backing that huge spending bill that really didn't have it was really a climate change bill.
Yeah, and he's discovered it
really
now.
had nothing to do with energy, and he was promised there would be more leases. He was promised there would be more energy production, and quite frankly, he got conned.
All right, here's the Mark. We've got about a little over 2 minutes to go here. Marc Rotterman again with us this afternoon. Mark, I go back to my question about the Republicans. Obviously, they have a open field, if you will, of issues, and they can point to rising gas costs and say, but my Democrat opponent is doing nothing but striking out in New York City. The Republicans, will they take advantage of this? Do they see the opportunity?
I think they do, but let me just say this. I think the Republicans are going to have a really good field. You've got Donald Trump. You'll have DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, who's done a wonderful job in Florida, the free state of Florida. He will announce sometime in June. Look for Tim Scott,
right?
Senator Tim Scott, who has $23 million in hand right now, and he was going to run for president. And he'd be a heck of a number two, and he's got a shot at being the nominee. So I think the Republicans are fielding a very good group to be in the primary, and I think it'll be very competitive. But I think they need to keep their eye on the ball,
right,
and not shoot each other.
Agreed.
They need to point out how are they going to move this country forward and make the target or the object Joe Biden, because the press will not do it.
Well, I'm thinking that, frankly, the press see this, and I, being a member of the press, am worried about this as a propaganda machine. They're enjoying the theater, the entertainment, but they're not getting any real news that influences the lives of every American.
Well, you're old school, though. Okay, they're more worried about getting clicks on their Twitter account.
Right.
Okay,
that's true.
They're not, and they don't follow a story the way you do on your paper or on your show. They don't really study. It's all about the company line. I mean, you can read something on the Huffington Post at 6, 7 in the morning, and they're still following the same and pushing the same story on their social media account 4 in the afternoon. Same thing with CNN, which is falling apart with no ratings. MSNBC. But I will predict to you that CNN and MSNBC's numbers will be up this week because they got somebody to hit again. It's their favorite pinata. It's Donald Trump.
Our guest this afternoon, I can't thank him enough for his time. It's Marc Rotterman, who's got real street creds when it comes to politics, having worked for the Reagan campaign and a lot of other campaigns as well. More to come here on the Talk Station. Stay with us. And as always, Mark, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.